If you're thinking about moving to the eastern part of the DFW Metroplex, there's a good chance you've come across Rockwall and Rowlett. And honestly, I really can see why. Both cities sit along Lake Ray Hubbard. Both offer more space than most Dallas neighborhoods, really, and both attract families, professionals, people who are looking for a suburban lifestyle without moving too far away from Dallas. That was important to me. So what's interesting is that when I was deciding where I was going to live, these two cities were one I was kind of stuck between. And I remember driving through the areas, exploring the neighborhoods, looking at the different pricing and just thinking about commute and trying to see which would be the better fit. On the surface, they really do seem very similar. These two cities are about 15 minutes apart. So one offers maybe like a shorter commute, more regional access, often more house for your money, while the other has become one of the most sought after suburbs in the east side of DFW thanks to its schools, its community feel, downtown district, and the lake lifestyle. So which one is better for you and your family? Well, in this video, we are comparing Rockwall versus Rowlett in 10 different categories so that you can actually think about and envision what's most important when you're choosing a place to live. We're going to talk about those commute times and schools and pricing, neighborhoods, all the things. We have got you covered. And ultimately, you want to be able to decide which is the better fit for you and your family. My name is Vidupe Idowu. You can call me Mo. I am a Texas realtor and a mortgage loan originator. So it doesn't matter if you're moving next week or next year, our team and our goal is here to make sure that your transition to Dallas is as smooth as possible. So before the end of this video, be sure to pause and book a call with the team so we can help you get started. Let's dive in. Number one, location and commute. So for a number of families, this category can eliminate a city before you even tour a home, okay? Because it doesn't matter how beautiful a house is. If you hate the drive to work, you're going to feel it every single day. And this is one of the biggest differences between Rockwall and Rowlett. So let's start with location, right? We know both cities are on the east side of the DFW area and along Lake Ray Hubbard, but Rowlett sits closer to Dallas. Parts of Rowlett are actually still in Dallas County. Rowlett is about 18 to 20 miles from downtown Dallas, and Rockwall is closer to 22 to 25 miles. Now, on paper, that may not sound like a lot. It may not sound like a huge difference, but when you start commuting 5 days a week, it can make a noticeable impact. And it's not just downtown Dallas. So a number of folks moving to this area work in places like Richardson or Plano, right? Legacy West, Frisco, one of the other major corporate corridors across the North Texas. So in most of those cases, Rowlett has a commute advantage. You're closer to President George Bush Turnpike. You're closer to Highway 190, and you have easier access to many of the major employment centers, right? Now, Rowlett also has something that Rockwall doesn't have, and that's the DART rail. So if you work downtown or simply like having public transportation options available, that's a nice benefit to have. Now let's talk about Rockwall, because if commute was the only thing that people really cared about, everyone would just live close to work as possible, right? But that's not how people make decisions. People are looking at their overall quality of life. And this is where Rockwall starts to attract lots of families, even though it's a little bit further east. Many people are happy to accept a slightly longer commute, okay, in exchange for what they feel is a stronger community feel or highly rated schools, a historic downtown, a unique lake lifestyle. And so, there's one thing that you should know about commuting from Rockwall is that the biggest challenge isn't necessarily the distance, it's geography. Many commuters heading west towards Dallas, they're crossing Lake Ray Hubbard on I-30. And so when traffic is moving, the commute isn't that bad. I can get downtown within 23 minutes. But if there's an accident on I-30, road construction, or bad weather, things can slow down quickly, okay? Because there's fewer alternate routes. So let's dive into airports really quick for a minute. If you travel frequently for work, Rowlett generally has an advantage here as well because Rowlett sits closer to both Love Field and DFW Airport. Is it a massive difference? No. Remember, they're only about 15 minutes apart. But if you're flying regularly, those extra miles can add up over time. So what's the bottom line? If you commute to Dallas, Plano, Richardson, Legacy West, Frisco 5 days a week, Rowlett probably has a location advantage. But if you work hybrid, maybe you work remotely, or you only commute a few times a week, that advantage may not matter nearly as much, okay? For a number of families, the question isn't whether, can they save 10 or 15 minutes in the car? It's what are they getting in return? right? What are you going to get in return? And for a lot of people, that conversation starts with the school district. So let's talk about one of the biggest reasons why families choose these two cities in the first place. Number two, schools. So this is the category that, can completely change the decision for your family because, you may be able to compromise on commute. Let's say you can compromise on a house too. But for a lot of parents, when it comes to those schools, that's a non-negotiable. And this is one of the biggest reasons why Rockwall has become such a popular destination for families. I want to start with Rockwall ISD. So the school district serves around 19,000 students, and they've really built a strong reputation on the east side of the DFW. On niche.com, Rockwall ISD holds an A rating. It's currently ranked number 32 when it comes to the best school district in Texas. It's currently ranked number 14 as far as the best school district in the DFW and number 8 on the best school district for athletes in the entire state. That's pretty impressive. And it explains why so many families specifically target Rockwall when they begin their home search. Now, Rockwall High School and Rockwall Heath High School both have earned ratings from the state of Texas, and the district consistently performs well academically. So if you're a parent who places a huge emphasis on school ratings, academics, athletics, and overall district reputation, Rockwall is going to be very attractive. Now let's talk about what Rowlett has to offer. Rowlett is primarily serviced by Garland ISD, which is a much larger district with more than 50,000 students. So on niche.com, Garland ISD holds an A- rating, okay, and it's currently ranked 189 for best school district in Texas, and then number 28 when it comes to the best school district in the DFW area, and number 104 best district for athletes in Texas. So before you start thinking that these ratings automatically end the conversation, there's something important that you should know. So Garland ISD's biggest advantage isn't its rankings, it's actually its flexibility. Because unlike many school districts that strictly assigns students based on where they live, Garland ISD offers a school choice program, and that allows families to apply to different campuses with specialized programs throughout the district. So for some parents, that flexibility is a huge advantage, especially if they're looking for magnet programs or career and technical education options or specific academic pathways, okay? So when it comes to athletics, both districts are pretty strong. Friday night lights are a big deal on both sides of the lake, okay? And so you'll find competitive football programs in volleyball, baseball, soccer, band, fine arts, just a wide range of extracurricular activities in both communities. So what's the bottom line? If your number one priority is attending one of the highest rated school districts on the east side of the DFW, then Rockwall has definitely got the edge. The numbers just support it. The reputation supports it, and the demand from buyers certainly supports it. Okay. But if you value that flexibility, school choice, specialized programs in a larger district with more campus options, Rowlett may surprise you then. All right. Because the district isn't always, just based on the highest ranked one. It's the one that fits your child's needs. And that leads us to the next question that most buyers ask is, okay, how much house do you actually get for your money? Number 3, home prices and what your money buys. Now, let's talk about the question that buyers want answered all the time, and that's how much house did you actually get for your money? Because at the end of the day, right, most people are working with a budget, okay? And so one of the biggest differences between Rockwall and Rowlett is how far that budget can go. Let's start with the big picture, because the median home price in Rockwall currently sits around the low to mid 500,000, okay? In Rowlett, however, the median price is closer to the low 400,000. Okay, so right away you see the difference. Okay, these are two different markets, but it doesn't mean that one is better than the other. It just means your money's going to buy something different depending on which side of the lake you choose. I want to give some realistic examples, right? So around the $400,000 budget in Rowlett, that really starts to shine because you can still find homes between 2,100 to 2,800 square feet with 3 to 5 bedrooms in established neighborhoods, mature trees, and larger lots. Many of these homes are actually built in the 1980s and 1990s, the early 2000s, and they've been updated over time, over the years. In Rockwall, a $400,000 budget can absolutely get you in the market, right? But you're typically shopping below the city's median price point. So that means less square footage, an older home, or fewer options when it comes to the more desirable neighborhoods, okay? So if your goal is to maximize every dollar, stick with Rowlett. They've got an advantage. Let's move up to maybe around $600,000 mark. This is where things start to get interesting because in Rowlett, $600,000 can often buy you a large executive style home. So we're talking about 3,000 to 4,000 square feet, oversized lots, sometimes even a pool. In Rockwall, $600,000 opens up the door to you to many of the communities where people are moving in the first place, okay? So you'll start seeing newer homes, master plan communities, community pools, walking trails, modern floor plans that many buyers are looking for today. At this price point, Rowlett gives you more house, but Rockwall is often going to give you a newer home, okay? So it really just comes down to what you value more. Now let's talk about the $800,000 range. This is where Rockwall starts to separate itself because at this price point, you're going to find the larger homes, you're going to find high-end finishes, premium lots, golf course communities, significantly more inventory than you would typically find in Rowlett. Rowlett still has some beautiful homes in this price range and even a little bit higher, but the inventory becomes much more limited. Rockwall simply has developed a stronger move-up market, all right, over the past decade. So, once you cross over the $1 million mark, the difference becomes even more noticeable. In Rowlett, luxury homes certainly exist, especially the lakefront homes, and they're just so beautiful, but they're far less common. In Rockwall, you're going to find the estate properties, the custom homes, the gated communities, like I said, with golf courses and waterfront opportunities. It's just one of the many reasons why so many executives or business owners tend to be drawn to the area, especially move-up buyers. Another thing to consider is the age of the home. Because, Rowlett has more established neighborhoods, mature trees, and older housing stock. Rockwall has experienced tremendous growth over the last 20 years or so, which means a larger percentage of the homes were actually built more recently. That often translates into the beautiful open floor plans, the higher ceilings, better energy efficiency, and then there's new construction, right? So, if building a home is really important to you, Rockwall has a clear advantage because there's just significantly more new construction communities, more builders, and more opportunities to purchase a brand new home. There's still some opportunities in Rowlett, right? But most buyers over there are definitely purchasing resale homes. So what's the bottom line? I would say, if your primary goal is getting more house for your money, Rowlett it's just hard to beat. But as your budget starts to move into the 600s, the 800s and beyond, Rockwall definitely begins to shine, and it offers more new construction, more luxury, more master plan communities. It's a different overall, lifestyle. Number 4, the neighborhood feel. Okay, so this section clearly can be subjective, right? This is a decision where, it becomes a lot more emotional because at some point you're going to stop thinking just about the school ratings and about the square footage. As a buyer, you really want to ask yourself a different question, which is, does this feel like home? And, this is where Rockwall and Rowlett start to feel very different. When I think of Rockwall, the first thing that comes to mind is a destination suburb. Like, people don't just end up in Rockwall. They chose Rockwall. In fact, one of the more things that I noticed when I was comparing these two cities myself was just how many people specifically, had mentioned, Rockwall on purpose. They weren't looking for the closest suburb to Dallas. They were actually looking for that Rockwall lifestyle. And then you start to feel when you drive through the city, it's historic downtown, and you see it in community events, and you see the school spirit, and you see the number of families who have chosen to put roots down here long term, and then even move some of their parents, right? A lot of millennials are like, come on down, they're getting their retiring parents to come down to Texas as well. So Rockwall has a population of around 50,000 residents or so, give or take. And the median age is around 39 years old. So you have cities filled with families, established professionals, people in their prime earning years. But it's also one of the more affluent communities on the east side of DFW, with household incomes well above the state average. Honestly, you can feel that when you drive through many of the neighborhoods. There's a strong sense of community. Now, let's talk about Rowlett, okay? Because Rowlett has a very different feel. Not better, not worse, just different. Rowlett feels more connected to the Metroplex, right? It feels a little bit more like a traditional Dallas suburb. You have a mix of the established neighborhoods, newer communities, lakefront areas, and a wider variety of housing options. Rowlett's population is around 67,000 residents, okay, with a median age of just under 40 years old. So the demographics are actually very similar to Rockwall. You'll find families, professionals, empty nesters, and people looking for that suburban lifestyle. But what I notice most about Rowlett is its diversity, not just culturally, but in the housing. You can find entry-level homes, move-up homes, lakefront homes, those established neighborhoods with mature trees and newer communities. There's a lot of variety, and for some buyers, that's a huge advantage. So if I had to describe the difference in one sentence, it would be that Rockwall feels more like its own destination. Rowlett feels more connected to the rest of the DFW. Honestly, neither is right or wrong. It just depends on what you're looking for. If you love the idea of a strong community identity, or more of a charming downtown and a city that feels like it has its own personality, you may find yourself drawn to Rockwall. But if you prefer a little bit more variety, a little bit more connectivity, and a little bit more flexibility in your housing options, Rowlett may feel like a better fit. At the end of the day, really, people just don't buy a house. You're buying into a community. And speaking of community, let's talk about one of the biggest reasons why people are attracted to both cities in the first place: lake life. Number 5, lake life and the outdoors. One of the biggest draws to both cities really is just lake living and being along Lake Ray Hubbard. It was the first thing that attracted me to both areas as well. So if you love being near the water, this category matters a lot. Rockwall and Rowlett both are on the lake. They both offer boating, fishing, parks, trails, golfing, and outdoor recreation. But they experience the lake a little bit different. I'm going to start with Rowlett, because one thing Rowlett doesn't get enough credit for is just how much direct access you have to the lake. Rowlett has more shoreline than many people realize. You have multiple waterfront parks, lakefront neighborhoods, boating ramps, fishing areas, recreational spaces, just all throughout the city. And for a number of residents, the lake feels like a part of their daily life, not just something that you go visit on the weekends. If your goal is simply just to get out on the water, go fishing, launch a boat, enjoy the lake regularly, Rowlett has a lot to offer. Now, I want to talk about Rockwall. Rockwall may not have the same amount of direct shoreline access to Rowlett, but what it does have is a very different lake experience, because Rockwall built much of its identity around the lake, and you see that at the harbor. We call it the Harbor District. You see it at the waterfront restaurants, and you see it in the events and the concerts, the festivals along the lake, the walking paths and the sunsets, the overall atmosphere. So for many people, this is what they picture when they think about lake living. But there's another thing worth mentioning, and that's when you live in Rockwall, you're just minutes away from heat. And heat opens up an entirely different side of the lake. You have access to places like Terry Park and the marina and the waterfront neighborhoods and boat access. So some of the most scenic views around the Lake Ray Hubbard are actually in heat as well. So even though Rowlett may have more direct shoreline access with its city limits, Rockwall residents definitely effectively get to enjoy both Rockwall and Heat's lake amenities. And that's a pretty big advantage. I want to talk to you about the parks and trails. Rowlett has a large park system. They've got community sports facilities, walking trails, recreational spaces just all throughout the city. It's a great option for families who spend their weekends outdoors. Rockwall offers parks as well, but many of the most popular outdoor destinations tend to be connected to the lake experience. So places where you can walk along the water, watch boats come in and enjoy the sunset, grab dinner by the lake after a night outside, So what I would say is, who wins in this category? I really think it depends on how much lake life living is important to you. Like if your priority is like, I need maximum access to the water, the shoreline, outdoor recreation, Rowlett has a strong case. But if your version of lake life includes waterfront dining and community events and sunsets and just like entertainment, then Rockwall and access to heat, they really do have something special going on in Rockwall. So the lake isn't just a body of water here, it really is part of lifestyle. So speaking of lifestyle, here's something most people don't talk about often until they move, and that's daily convenience. Number 6, daily convenience. This is one of the most overlooked categories when people are like choosing a place to live, because, everyone's focusing on the house, everyone's focusing on the school district and the commute, all those things, the neighborhood. But what about the things that you do every single day, every single week? Where are you buying your groceries? How far is Costco? So where are you going to the doctor? Where are you grabbing coffee? Like, where are you taking the kids after school? Like, these little trips add up fast, and over time, they have a big impact on your quality of life. So I'll start with groceries because both cities really do a good job here. So in Rockwall, you have multiple grocery options, including Tom Thumb and Kroger, Sprouts, Walmart, Target, and HEB. You got to mention HEB. People love HEB in Texas. Okay, I'm warning you now. And you just got that everyday shopping destinations. In Rowlett, you'll find Tom Thumb, Walmart, Albertsons. You'll also find Target and quick access to additional shopping in Garland or Saxby. Okay, so from a grocery standpoint, both cities check the boxes. This is where things start to change. Let's talk about Costco because for a number of families, this is practically a way of life. Rockwall has a major advantage here because the city has its own Costco, along with, like I mentioned, Target, Home Depot, Lowe's. It has a really concentrated corridor that allows many residents to complete multiple errands in a single trip. I can get anywhere that I need to get in Rockwall and run my errands within like 5 to 10 minutes. So if you live in Rockwall, there's a good chance you could handle most of your weekly shopping without ever having to leave the city. Rowlett residents definitely have access to stores as well. And many of them are driving to Rockwall, also to Garland, the Firewheel, or other surrounding areas to get everything done. Okay, let's talk about healthcare, because this is where Rowlett really deserves some credit. Because of its location, Rowlett offers quicker access to a large number of medical facilities across Garland, Richardson, Dallas, and the surrounding areas. Rockwall has its own hospital, Texas Health in Rockwall, along with medical offices and specialty providers, and you also have Baylor Scott and White, right? But for some of that specialized care, many Rockwall residents still find themselves heading into Dallas or Plano. So if access to broader healthcare network is more important to you, Rowlett may have a slight edge. Rowlett also has the Baylor Scott and White Lake Point, which is a full-service hospital as well. Now let's talk about coffee shops and restaurants and places you'll find yourself visiting multiple times a week. This is where Rockwall starts to feel a little bit different. Because between downtown Rockwall, right, and the harbor and the main retail corridors, there's a high concentration of local businesses and restaurants and coffee shops in your everyday services. And it creates a lifestyle where many people can stay close to home and still have plenty of options. So Rowlett still has great local businesses too, especially along Lakeview. That's a major corridor, and you'll just see business and restaurant one right after the other, okay? But still, residents in Rowlett still have to visit Garland or Saxby or Rockwall or other nearby cities for dining, shopping, and entertainment, okay? So the bottom line is that if your priority is having most of your daily shopping and errands within a few minutes from home, Rockwall has a strong advantage, okay? If you don't mind driving to some neighboring cities, and if you value regional access over keeping everything super local, then Rowlett will work just fine. You're not going to suffer in either area. Daily convenience isn't just about like one big trip, right? It's about those 10, 20 small trips you make every week. Those trips can make a difference in how it feels when you actually live here. Number 7, shopping and entertainment. Okay, so let's talk about what life looks like when you're not working, okay? Because a lot of people, you can focus on the commute and all the other things, but what does your Saturday afternoon look like? Where are you going for dinner? This is where, you're taking visitors when they come to town. Like, where are you doing that? Where are you spending date night? Where are you going to walk and to relax and enjoy? This is one of the biggest differences between Rockwall and Rowlett, right? Let's start with Rockwall. Rockwall has something that many suburbs simply just don't have, and it's a true historic downtown district. Downtown Rockwall has local restaurants and shops and coffee spots. It's got the community events and the farmers markets, the holiday celebrations, that small town feel that many people are looking for when they move to the suburbs. And it's one of those places where people actually go to spend time, not just run errands. And then there's the harbor. Honestly, I think that this is one of the most underrated destinations in the entire DFW area because a lot of people who move from out of state don't even know that it exists. You have waterfront restaurants and lake views and walking paths and a movie theater, community events. They've got live music and the sunsets over the water. Even the dinner cruises over the sunsets are really beautiful. So it's a unique atmosphere that's kind of hard to find anywhere else on the east side of DFW. When people talk about Rockwall lifestyle, this is what they're talking about. Now, when we go to Rowlett's entertainment scene is different because it's not as concentrated as Rockwall's. The city has been investing heavily in its future. So you have downtown Rowlett, you've got community events there too, and parks and the lake activities, and that continued redevelopment that's helping to shape the city's identity. And because Rowlett sits closer to the rest of the Metroplex, many residents just take advantage of the entertainment options that are outside of the city as well, right? And that's an important distinction. Rockwall tends to create entertainment within the city. Rowlett tends to benefit from proximity to entertainment across the Metroplex. For example, Rowlett residents really have convenient access to places like the Fire Wheel. It's a Fire Wheel Town Center, Garland, Richardson, Dallas. So if you enjoy exploring different areas in DFW, that location can be a real advantage. If you prefer having a destination closer to home, Rockwall has a strong case. This is where I think the difference can be summed up best. Rockwall offers a destination experience, Rowlett offers a more connected experience. And, one isn't necessarily better than the other, just depends on how you spend your free time. Number 8, taxes, so much fun, and cost of living. Okay, so, this isn't very exciting, but it does have a huge impact on your monthly budget. So this is the real cost of owning a home because, a lot of buyers focus on the purchase price, and the smart ones are looking at that monthly payment. Okay, you got your taxes, your insurance, all those things. And the payment is a lot more than just your mortgage, right? Your property taxes, your homeowner's insurance, the HOA fees, the utilities, all of those costs add up really quickly. Now, I want to start with property taxes because if you're moving from a state with low property taxes, this may be one of the biggest adjustments you're going to have to make. Now, Texas doesn't have state income tax, so property taxes help fund many of the services that other states pay for differently. So when it comes to Rockwall and Rowlett, there isn't a massive difference in property taxes across the board, okay? The actual rate can vary significantly depending on the neighborhood, the school district, the county, and whether the community has what's called a MUD or a PID. That's why I always tell buyers to look at specific properties rather than assuming the entire city has the same tax rate. Okay. In general, both cities fall into what most Texans would consider a typical property tax range for the DFW area. So this isn't really a category where one city completely separates itself from the others, but we can talk about the H, but I will say that traditionally Rockwall does tend to trend a little bit lower than the DFW area. All right, so let's talk about the HOA fees because this is where we start to see a difference. Rockwall has experienced tremendous growth. Remember, I said over the past 2 decades, the growth has been more master plan communities, more amenities, more community pools and the walking trails, more of those neighborhood features. The trade-off is that many of those communities also come with HOA fees. Rowlett has plenty of HOA communities as well, but because the city is more established and has more established neighborhoods, you'll also find many areas with lower HOA fees or no HOA fee at all. So minimizing monthly fees, if that's a priority, Rowlett has a slight advantage. Let's talk insurance. This is where it's pretty close. Both cities are along Lake Ray Hubbard, so, both experience the same North Texas weather patterns. Both are subject to many of the same insurance factors, right? So like hail or wind, roof age, claim history, all those things. Your specific home will have a much bigger impact on your insurance costs than whether you choose Rockwall or Rowlett. Then there's utilities, and this is something many buyers really don't think about until their first summer in Texas, okay? That electric bill. So Rowlett has, a much larger inventory of homes that were built in the 1980s, 1990s, early 2000s. Rockwall has a higher percentage of homes built within the last 20 years. So that means newer HVAC systems, better insulation, energy efficient windows, more modern building standards. So while the purchase price may be higher in some Rockwall communities, the monthly utility costs can sometimes be more efficient depending on the home. Bottom line is, if your goal is to keep your housing costs as low as possible, Rowlett often provides a lower entry price, more established neighborhoods, and fewer HOA obligations. If you're considering newer communities, modern features, master plan communities, then Rockwall delivers more value, even if the initial costs are higher. Because the real question isn't just, which city is cheaper. The real question is, which city delivers the better value for the life you want to live. And so that brings us to our final question, which is who should even choose Rockwall and who should choose Rowlett? Now, really quick, because before we even move to the final question, there's one topic that I get asked a lot about, and that is safety. The good news here is that there really isn't a bad answer. So according to Neighborhood Scout, both Rockwall and Rowlett report violent crime rates of about 1.5 incidents per 1,000 residents, which is well below the Texas average of approximately almost 4 per 1,000 residents. So, other sources such as Area Vibes report that both cities overall have crime rates below the national average. So, when people ask me which city is safer, I think the better question is which neighborhood fits your family best, because, when you start comparing these two cities, both are generally considered safe communities by DFW standards based on the statistics, right? And so at that point, I would encourage you to look at the specific neighborhoods, the schools, the community feel, rather than just making a decision solely on citywide crime statistics. Number 9, who each city is best for. Okay, so after everything we've covered so far, the commute, the schools, the home prices, the neighborhoods, the lake and shopping, the cost of living, I want to talk about, who each of the cities really is built for, because the truth is there's no perfect city. There's only the city that fits your priorities best. Let's start with Rowlett. Rowlett may be the better fit for you if you work west of the lake. If you commute to downtown Dallas or Richardson, Plano, Legacy West, or Frisco on a regular basis, those extra minutes you save each day can add up quickly. Rowlett also can be a great fit if you want easier access to the rest of the Metroplex, because between I-30, President George Turnpike, which is a toll road, or Dart Rail, getting around DFW is easier from Rowlett. You may also prefer Rowlett if your priority is the most house for your money, especially in the $350,000 to $600,000 price range. Rowlett tends to offer more square footage and larger lots for the same budget, especially if you like the mature trees and established communities, wider variety of housing options. Rowlett definitely has a lot to offer. In short, I would say Rowlett is a great fit for buyers who want value, convenience, and connectivity. Let's talk about Rockwall. Rockwall may be the better fit if schools are your number one or your top priority. Because Rockwall ISD holds an A rating and, they're number 32 in Texas and number 8 in the district for athletes, all these things, then for athletes really in the entire state, For many families, that alone puts Rockwall at the top of the list. So you may also prefer Rockwall if you want a stronger sense of community, right? There's a reason why so many people describe Rockwall as a destination suburb, with the historic downtown and community events and different things like that you get to enjoy, or those events along the lake. And really at the harbor, what's really nice is a lot of the events are family friendly. And I think a number of folks really appreciate that, right? Rockwall is also the better fit if you're looking for newer homes or master plan communities, move up or luxury housing. So if your budget starts moving to $700,000, $800,000, the $1 million range, then Rockwall offers more inventory for you. Okay, you've got more options. If you love the idea of spending your evenings at the harbor, dinner at the lake, attending a community event or some live music, then Rockwall definitely has created a lifestyle that many buyers specifically seek out. So if I had to summarize it, Rowlett is a great fit for those who want to stay connected to the DFW. Rowlett is more of a great fit for people who want to feel like they just escaped it. Okay, it's just, just a little bit. That's why this decision is so personal, because both cities, they're attracting similar people. Remember, the median age is around 39 years old for both Rowlett and Rockwall, right? It's the same. And both are filled with families, and both are filled with professionals, and both offer access to Lake Ray Hubbard, and both are continuing to grow. But the difference isn't really, the people, it's the lifestyle, which brings us to the most important question of the entire video. So after we've covered everything, the commute and the schools, I really hope that you got a feel for what both communities have to offer. Now, we have finally arrived at the most important question, and it's not, which city is better? Because honestly, I just don't think that's the right question. If you made it this far in the video, you probably kind of already figured out that both of these cities have a lot to offer. The real question is, what kind of life are you trying to live? And what kind of life are you trying to create for your family? If priorities are a shorter commute and easier access to the Metroplex, more house for your money, more flexibility, Rowlett is exactly what you may be looking for, okay? If you really want the stronger community and the strong schools and a thriving downtown and, the harbor feel that's more of a destination suburb, Rockwall is going to be a better fit. And so, that's the same conclusion I came when I was looking at these cities for myself. There wasn't a right or wrong answer. I really could appreciate what both cities had to offer, okay? So I hope this video helps you figure out what's best for you and your family. You're not just buying a house, you're choosing where your kids are going to grow up, where you're going to create these beautiful memories, right? Where you're going to celebrate your wedding anniversaries, like all the things. And so those things matter. It's just a matter of, which is a better fit for you guys. So if you're still trying to decide between the two and you need a little bit more help, or maybe you're considering another area within the DFW Metroplex, I want you to go ahead and book a call with the team. There's a link in the description and there's a QR code that you can scan to book a call. You can also shoot us a text and we'll get you set up, get you pre-approved, just help make that transition as smooth as possible. We're really here to be your hands and feet while you're doing your research. So when you come to town, you're going to be seeing things like, oh, Mo already showed us this area. It's going to be that much easier to make a decision on the area and then eventually the home. And we want to be here to help you with that. So thanks for watching. Be sure to like, share, and subscribe. And until next time, I hope to see you around Texas.